Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Adorned with Dignity. We are on day 20, and I hope you were all able to get through day 19 with dry eyes. I know I was not successful in doing it. It was a very emotional day. Nevertheless, we're all here together again, and we're almost halfway through the Sefer. This actually has 50 days. For some reason, I thought it had I thought it was a 30-day book last year for whatever reason, but it actually has 50 days. So we're on day 20. So we're almost at the halfway point. And Mazal Tov to everyone who's gotten this far. And today we're talking about the history of wearing Sheitels in public. And it's always good to know, right, where did this come from? Where did this start? Because it's such a big argument and you kind of want to know, you want to have your facts together, when you're speaking with somebody. And of course, I always encourage that all these talks, if you find that you're speaking with someone else who is just as zealous in their belief as you are, it's better not to have the conversation, because at the end of the day, if it's only going to bring trouble between you and that person and possibly hurt the friendship, it's better not to do it. Just agree to disagree at this point. Focus on the things that you have in common together. And from there, build a bridge on common ground. And this will help ensure that if at a later time that you're able to have the conversation in a common rational manner, that you can do so successfully. So today we're talking about the traditional head covering. And it states that, as mentioned earlier, the Torah rules that a woman should cover her hair, which is her main source of beauty, in order to attract attention from herself. For this reason, throughout previous generations, dating back to Sarah Amenu, Jewish women covered their hair with a kerchief in public. So it says, Sheitels in the time of the Gemara. The Gemara in Shabbos teaches that a woman may go out on Shabbos in her courtyard wearing a sheitel, and that it is not considered carrying on Shabbos. Based on this, many people assume that the women in the times of Gemara wore sheitels in public. It is clear from the Gemara that the women wore sheitels primarily in the privacy of their homes or in the courtyards where it was uncommon for another man to pass through. Indeed, the Torah allows a woman to wear a wig in a courtyard on Shabbos and one other specific type of jewelry as opposed to other adornments, so that she may look pleasing to her husband. This shows us that the sheitel is a prime source of beauty for women, and therefore the Torah did not want to stop her from adorning herself with it for her husband. So now I have to actually interject something here. So now I've obviously since the last year, I've done a lot of research on this, and I find that, this practice of wearing a wig really was to help someone who was kind of, either thinning or balding. Even back then, if you were doing it, it was kind of known that you probably had some kind of, issue with the hair, and to kind of, make it look more presentable to your husband, it was allowed. So, even back then, it wasn't really something the way it is now. I think it's just turned into a new direction, and it's become something that I think it shouldn't have ever become, which I think was always the fear of the Rabbanim. For some Rabbanim, that they either, if they did it, they did like, not that they liked the idea, but that they did approve the idea, but they had concerns about this, and some just had outright concerns that this would be the case. And of course, we see what it's become today. But we're going to go on. It says, according to all Rishonim, a wig was worn by women whose hair had flaws. It was very thin, white, and unbecoming, in order to beautify themselves for their husbands. When such a woman went out in public with her wig still on, she concealed it completely with a kerchief that covered the entire wig. From here we see that the wig was worn as a substitute for hair and not a substitute for a head covering. We see from here, as mentioned earlier, that a sheitel was originally intended to be used to enhance shalom and hava in the home, not to be worn in public. Deviation from the tradition. When women began to wear sheitels in public, it was a new phenomenon that deviated from the tradition. This occurred after March 1851, when the Tsar of the Russian Empire, which at the time included Lithuania and parts of Poland, decreed that all Jewish women under his jurisdiction may not cut off all their hair upon marriage, as was the accepted practice among most Ashkenazic women. Nevertheless, women courageously followed the ruling of their Rabbanim that a married woman should cut off all her hair. Yet, since it was a matter of life and death, some Rabbanim at the time searched for a leniency to allow women to wear wigs, which in most cases were mostly covered with a kerchief, so that it should appear as if they had hair under their kerchiefs. Other Rabbanim were against this since they felt that the deviation from tradition would detrimentally affect the spiritual level of future generations. It should be noted that in the times of the Russian Tsar, the Sheitels were stiff and wiggy looking and did not come even close to the natural looking Sheitels of today. And it says that Harav Binyamin Rabinovitz attested, see the approbation for the Sefer Das Moshe V'Israel, and the custom of wearing Sheitels in public started approximately 150 years ago because of the decree of the Tsar. Even after the decree was abolished, the custom remained and continued to be practiced in later generations until the reason for this custom has become completely forgotten. So now let's recap that, because I think most people, and I've heard this a lot, really a lot, that this is their minhag, this is their tradition. But if you see here, remember that the Ashkenazi women were shaving off their hair. They were cutting off all their hair. So the wig really was supposed to, because, if a soldier or anybody, that could be of trouble then would pass by, generally they were at a distance. So even though they were covering with a kerchief, the wig was supposed to kind of fool them into thinking that there was some kind of hair. And also to make them think that, that they were not Jews per se, to not kind of get them more in trouble, to kind of point them out as they would be different. So, the intention here was clearly quite different than I think what it's become, like I mentioned earlier. I think that, there comes a time when it comes to saving, lives of Jewish people, you have to, you have to do whatever you can. And believe me, they agonized over this. This was a very difficult decision. But once the danger had passed, the reason for wearing, the sheitel no longer exists. But that's, this is again, a highly debated thing. And in later years, there were different reasons why they allowed it. But for this particular reason, the fact that the minhag went on after that, I think that was the big argument, that perhaps it should have stopped when the danger passed. But this is, we are where we are now, and, we can't go back. We've passed the Rubicon. Now we have to just, deal with it as a nation together, and hopefully in unity from this point on, and come to a place of peace and understanding. So, but that's it for day 20. That's going to conclude day 20. And I hope we'll all be together again soon. B'ezrat Hashem.